Hello everyone, Tom with Capable Fetish. Welcome back everybody. Today on the channel we're going to talk about double albums that test your endurance, meaning these are albums that are a slog to get through. They may have a few fine moments, but there's a lot of overindulgence and it really is a patience test to get through these albums. So they're all double albums except this first one's a triple album, and this one's from 1980. This is the Clash's Sandinista, a triple album, 6 sides of just everything in the kitchen sink thrown in here. So this would have made a fine single album. This could have been probably one of their greatest albums next to London Calling and the debut, but they decided to just go full on. A lot of reggae dub experiments. A lot of great tracks on here though. A good handful of great tracks. Somebody Got Murdered, Police on My Back. Charlie Don't Surf is kind of interesting. The Call Up is a fantastic track. The Magnificent Seven is cool. But there's just a lot of just odd, weird shit on here that's hard to get through. And a lot of it is the dubs. Those were the hardest thing for me to get through on these albums, just these dubs in between like these kind of well-written tracks. Now, I really, I give them credit for going full-on creativity on this, but this is just way too much. Way too much. I remember when this came out, I was just blown away about how much information was on this album. And, most of it does not work. But again, if you have like 6 songs on each side, that's about 36 tracks total, you could definitely come up with probably a good 10-song single album here. So this is just an example of an album for me that's always been a slog to get through. There's some great moments on here, but just a lot of bullshit. So Sandinista from The Clash from 1980. Now I know this is going to be very sacrilegious, but I've always found Bitches Brew very hard to get through. And I love Miles Davis. He's kind of a hit and miss artist with me. I either love his stuff or I just don't really get it. In fact, the album that came out before Bitches Brew, a year prior, this is one of my favorite albums of all time, In a Silent Way. I love this record. I've listened to this album so much. Has such a great vibe, but there's something about Bitches Brew. There's just something about it. The instrumentation, I've always found it so irritating to the ears, and it's so hard for me to get through it. As I get older, I'll keep trying. I'll keep trying to play this album and find something in here that I like, but as of right now, and for many years, I've just never liked Bitches Brew. I know a lot of people hold this in high regard as a great jazz fusion album. I think there's a lot of better jazz fusion albums, but again, just my opinion, I just can never, ever understand or get through Bitches Brew like I get through In a Silent Way. So that's just another example. Bitches Brew from 1969 or 70, I believe. Double album. Another one, too, I went through a huge Bob Dylan phase about 10 years ago, where I think for about 3 or 4 months, that's all I listened to was Bob Dylan, mainly his 60s stuff and a little bit of the early 70s stuff. So I decided to delve more into his 70s stuff, and I bought Self-Portrait. And we all know the whole story about this album and how it was just kind of like wow when it came out. Like no one understood it, got a lot of horrible reviews, and for good reason. This is a terrible record. 2 albums worth of just nonsense. A few decent tracks. There's like maybe 3 live tracks on here from the Isle of Wight Festival in '69. Not a very good version of Like a Rolling Stone. They do the Mighty Quinn live, which is really cool. I think that was even on Bob Dylan's Greatest Hits Volume 2. But just that first track, all the Tired Horses. When I got this, I thought I had the wrong CD. I mean, it just kept going. It kept repeating that line over and over. And then Alberta #1. I mean, just very, very like not really thought out material. I wonder if this was his way of just kind of like sabotaging his career, kind of getting people off his back. All these people that thought he was God. Maybe he just wanted to retreat and get away from it all. But I mean, two albums worth of just bullshit. Horrible version of The Boxer by Paul Simon. And from the album A Bridge Over Troubled Water. Not the greatest version of The Boxer here. We got a version of Alberta #2, Wigwam. I mean, there's just a lot of just absolute nonsense on here. Covers, bad covers of other songs. So yeah, this one here was the first time I heard it. I decided, because I heard about it prior, that it was a bad album, and I just wanted to sit through it in one sitting, and it was very difficult, but I got through it in one sitting, and I've never listened to it since. So another example of a double album that really, really test your patience. Another one too, I'm a huge fan of Marvin Gaye, but I could never get into Hear My Dear. I don't know, maybe it's too slick or something, but there's just nothing here that really sticks with me. It came out in 1978. It was about his divorce. A lot of the songs deal with that, but there's just nothing on here, and there's 4 sides of this. I just can never really truly get into it. Maybe I'll try again at some point, but right now, again, a slog to get through. Marvin Gaye's Hear My Dear, double album from 1978. I love the first 4 Rascals albums. I think they're fantastic. I think even some of their album cuts are as good as their singles, but their 5th album, I believe this is their 5th album, Freedom Suite from 1968. Apart from a couple of decent songs like the single Gotta Be Free, there's a track on here called Of Course. But man, side 3 and 4 are pretty much dispensable. You know what I mean? There's a version of here, or a side long thing called Cute on side 4 that is just nonsense. There's another thing, I think it's called Boom. A drummer showcase for Eddie. And it just kind of, I've never been big on drum solos to begin with, but it just goes nowhere. A lot of the songs seem kind of half-baked. And yeah, just another album that really takes some endurance for me to get through. I've tried it one time. I don't think I ever will again. Why is it still in my collection? Well, I'm a completist for certain artists. So this is one of them. Freedom Suite by the Rascals from 1968. Very hard to get through this, especially side 3 and 4. Side 1 and 2 have a few good tracks, but side 3 and 4 are pretty much yikes. Another one too, another band or an artist who I must have everything by, because he's one of my favorite artists of all time as far as like songwriting, and I think he's one of the greatest singers of all time. And I'm talking about John Lennon. The album Sometime in New York City. Definite mixed bag here. I think one of my least favorite album of John Lennon. I do like the song John Sinclair. That's cool. New York City is okay. Attica State. The Yoko songs I can do without. And then there's that side with where he's jamming with Zappa, which is just kind of like tedious and boring. And I guess there was some kind of legal dispute there with that particular track with Zappa, because I guess he wasn't giving credit to Zappa for that particular track, that live instrumental track. But yeah, this is just, I mean, 2 albums worth of just kind of like a lot of just a bunch of political bullshit. John going full in with the political thing. After this, he kind of retreated. And the next album was, I believe, Mind Games, which he kind of resorted back to more kind of song-oriented type stuff, more kind of accessible stuff. That and the album that followed, Walls and Bridges, which was cool. But this album I just can never get through all the way. Very, very hard to listen to. But a few decent tracks, nevertheless. So, Sometime in New York City by John Lennon from 1972. Another one, an artist I feel, for me, he's kind of a hit and miss artist, and he's just all over the map. He's written some of the greatest albums ever, some of the greatest tracks, but I can never get into his double album, Todd by Todd Runge. There's just something about this album. There's just nothing that really sticks with me about it. I do like the song, A Dream Goes On Forever. That's really cool. But the rest for me is just a real slog to get through. This came out in 1974 as well. And he was just cranking out stuff right and left in the 70s, Todd Runge. I mean, you had like Something Anything, then the Wizard album, and you have this album, and then the other album, Runt. So he was really on a creative roll, but some of his stuff just does not stick with me. I mean, you compare this album to like something like Hermit of Mink Hollow, and it's just like night and day. I mean, Hermit of Mink Hollow is just shows him as a craftsman. I like Todd Runge as a craftsman rather than an experimental type artist. But everybody has their opinion. This album never really registered with me. It's a double album, and it's a slog to get through. And it tests my endurance. And then we can't go without mentioning this album. If you can get through at least one side of this album, that means that you have a lot of patience and a lot of endurance. And I'm talking about Lou Reed's Metal Machine Music. This is called self-sabotage in the worst way here. I mean, a double album of just absolute tweaks and noises and bleeps and blurps and everything else. Side 1 sounds nothing like side 4. I mean, I've never listened to this album in its entirety. I've barely got through side 1, and I didn't even want to attempt side 2. Have any of you out here heard this album all the way through? Let me know in the comments section. I'd love to know. Also, let me know what albums are hard for you to get through. Double albums that test your endurance. Let me know in the comments section. As always, thanks for watching. If you hadn't subscribed and you dig the content that you're seeing on previous videos or this video, just press the subscribe button. It's free. And take care, everyone. We'll see you soon. Bye.